You don't get to rush this. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and this is my recap of The Last of Us, Season 2, Episode 2. Also, like a review. Also, just my thoughts. I'm not the greatest recapper in the world. I mean, there are people who literally break down every single minute and sit down and talk about the Easter eggs and the relativity to the video game and what everything means spiritually and ethically and ecologically, and find those people. I absolutely go for those people, but this is like a blind opinion on the show. It's audio description team, which is still doing some absolutely fantastic work in this. And I love the fact that we're getting quality control is being credited now. I think the last credit that we can add is whoever does sound. You know, who is doing the sound engineering, the sound mixing, because Last of Us is now crediting the narrator, the writer, and the quality control. But there is one last little group. Somebody is putting the thing together. And that's an important step too. So, this is the episode, and there are, I don't know, 7 billion reactions to this already on social media. So thank you for taking the time to find one more. I'll try to do it a little bit differently than all of the other ones that I've already seen. I reacted immediately with I just wanted to talk specifically about Joel and the should they have or should they not have of it all. So I did a video about that, and I said I was going to do a separate recap video after, which is this. So the episode itself, is it good? This is something that I was asked, obviously, because this is all anybody can never talk about. I love how this happened and the Pope happened at relatively the same time. And I've had far more conversations about The Last of Us than I have the ramifications of the death of the Pope. So, I guess that just shows sort of where we're at in society. I don't know. But, that being said, I did like parts of the episode. I'm very conflicted about it, and I came at it, as I mentioned in my Joel review. I think there are better ways to do it, especially considering that that they don't have a Last of Us 3 out, even if that's what they're thinking about doing, even if they're thinking we can crank that out in time. Well, George R.R. Martin thought he was going to get another book out in time for Game of Thrones, and well, that didn't happen. So they had to go in a different direction because George works at his own pace, as will Naughty Dog making a video game. So that's what happens when you make a TV series that's based on a video game that only has 2 in the series, and you use the entire first season to do an entire video game. So now that you're in the second season, logic would say, well, we have a season to do this. However, they're going to House of the Dragon this one, and from what I understand, stretch it into season 3. Okay. And then what? I mean, this is a huge series for HBO, and I think if they're going to want to milk House of the Dragon for 4 seasons, I think they're going to want to milk Last of Us for more than 3. So I just don't know where we go from here. And what I would argue, as somebody who actually enjoyed House of the Dragon season 2, and the reason is because of character growth. We were actually getting character growth, and we're actually starting to get character growth because we're actually staying in one place with characters, which is something that The Last of Us is really good at doing, but in small amounts. Obviously we had a great sort of bottle episode in season 1 featuring two characters who were just sort of passing references and didn't, their whole backstory was never really shown in the first video game. Well, the TV series gave them an opportunity to really dive into these two survivors and their whole backstory and how they fit in to the world of The Last of Us. So here, they're already starting to get a little bit more, whimsical in their approach by adding things that were never there, which is great. And they should do more of that, and should have done more of that with regards to Joel. Not everything has to be the exact same way. So in this episode, we sort of had the setup, the beating you over the head with what's to come of, he's going to be Joel and I'm going to be me and things are never going to change. Girl, please. I love that they give her really obvious dialogue. Ellie right up at the start when she's arguing, and we find out that Joel went out on, with Dina, and now she has to go out with Jesse, who I guess is, he's got the kind of leadership skills that will one day make him king of all that is Jackson. So she rides out with Jesse, who hints at one point that he and Dina were dating and they broke up, and he found out that Ellie and Dina kissed and gives her a little bit of shit about that. And but still Jesse seems like an interesting introduction to the show as a character. We're just now meeting him, learning anything about him. He goes out, he takes Ellie, and they get stuck in sort of this blizzard, and they have to seek refuge in a 7-Eleven-ish store. I know he didn't say ish when he said 7-Eleven, but he just branded it, which is okay. I'm assuming maybe it was straight up a 7-Eleven. I don't know, the audio description didn't use the brand 7-Eleven to just describe the show. It did sort of have a garage that was attached to it where they put the horses, and I haven't seen a 7-Eleven with a garage attached to it in God knows how long ever. So, not really their thing anymore. They're like, we sell food, come inside. So they go inside, they keep their horses in the garage of the 7-Eleven with some hay. It's handy to have hay around. And there's a whole bunch of weed. So we know where the weed is being farmed. And there's once again a reference to the guy that Joel killed, and a lot of heavy-handed, oh, it's a shame what had to happen, and how he had to put him down. He got a really raw deal with that. Oh man, God, you should have been there. If you'd seen it, you wouldn't have been able. I'm like, okay, so we're gonna do an episode. I know we're gonna do an episode. We're gonna do a flashback episode. So we're gonna another episode with Pedro Pascal this season. Guaranteed, or possibly next season, but there's another episode coming where we're going to see Joel and what happened with the ever omnipresent Eugene that we just keep hearing about. So the other thing that's happening is we see our bold Fireflies. They've been scoping out the town below. They're in some cabin on the fucking mountain. I don't know. I think Jackson would know where all these things were, because, well, they've been there for years and this thing isn't that far away. So you would think that within a radius that you would have cleared all structures and everything within a radius of you. So, the fact that Joel doesn't know where his cabin is just sort of baffling to me, but okay. But they're held up in this cabin and, discussing the various scopings that they've done of Jackson and noting the towers and the entrances and everything that they've seen from afar, not really paying any attention to if they knew that Jackson just had an open door policy and welcoming people, they could just walk in and they could just join Jackson and be like, we're a band of refugees searching water. But oh hell no, we have to do things the hard way. The Abby way. So, I don't even functionally understand. Abby's like up on a mountain and then like falls down it and causes like chaos. Basically, she sees like a frozen hand and then clickers and stuff sort of break through the ice, and I guess they've been hibernating. There's a lot of theories going on about not everything do we get in the audio description. A lot of this is just other people that I've seen talking about it, but there was like a clicker that was shown with fresh blood on its face, even though there was nothing to feed off of except other frozen dead zombies. So, you know what I guess they're also feeding on their own to keep themselves alive while using the dead ones as bait, like as warmth and everything. Just, there's a lot of strategy that's happening. And it's something that Ellie talked about in the first episode with the stalker, is that things are changing, you know, that there was one that was smart and was planning and was scoping things out, and it wasn't just dumb and just making and using like echolocation to try to find you. So the fight ensues, and this mob of this horde of zombies attack, infected, if you will, whatever you prefer to choose your title. They're not all clickers. There are different kinds, which is shown later in Jackson when they have to fight a bloater, which bursts through. The term wasn't used in the audio description, but if you're familiar with the game, you know certain types of zombies and what they're called, as you would with literally any franchise. Same thing if we ever get an excellent adaptation of Left 4 Dead, which would be great, by the way. I mean, there's a series that is like really ready to be adapted by somebody competent, but could also be adapted by somebody incompetent and turned into a hot ooey bowl mess of god awfulness. So they have to fight the bloater, which unlike in the video game, bloaters are very sensitive to fire. This bloater eventually dies by fire. But I mean, Tommy had to use up his like all of it, the whole thing, just the entire torch. They have you know, I mean, they're so pre-planned in Jackson that they have strategy. They know where to go. They have people to go to certain places and fight. They have an actual game plan. Like, they feel like they've been preparing for this. So to see that plan sort of come into action, and to see people, you know, suiting up and with armor and with the right weapons and everything, and this was what was great about the episode. People talk about the episode, and unfortunately, I'm concerned that this episode will be remembered for Joel, because we spend a lot of time in that cabin. But this scene was objectively great. And while it would have slowed down the show, I think we should have probably taken a beat and continued to slow it down and had this be its own thing, and then had somehow later on, if you want to have your Joel moment, then have your Joel moment. But we almost had something really cool, because you have Joel rescuing Abby in the middle of this horde of zombies where she otherwise would have died. And it could have given her a moment of pause of thinking if she had to, in this whole episode, instead of focusing so hard on how do I get this man back to the cabin, if she had had to focus on I need to be with this person in order to survive. I think that's the interesting dynamic, is that this is the person that she's been hating for 4 years, and suddenly she's with him, but also she's about to die. So there's only just so much that they can really do. And she seems really gung-ho about getting him to the cabin because she's not really feeling anything else that's going on in the moment. She has a one-track mind, even amidst the chaos ensuing around her. And I think it would have been a smarter writing decision to let Abby, be consumed by the chaos in the moment and have to stand there sort of back to back with Joel and fight with this person. I think that's one of the interesting things we pull out of cinema, are two very unlikely friends who are actually foes coming together, and they need each other to survive. Otherwise, both of them will die. So we've seen it used. It's a trope, but it's an effective trope. And it's a trope that would allow Abby to have some sort of character growth, because she's been in all of like one episode. So, and the little bit of time that we got with her in the first episode really wasn't enough. It's just like a girl on a mission to avenge her dad's death, but also avenging her dad's death means killing the lead character of the show, which is a tough sell for your average audience. So in the video game, it's polarizing with some intention to be polarizing. And then suddenly Abby becomes like the co-lead. And then when you jump around between Ellie and like it's Abby. Instead of jumping back and forth between Ellie and Joel, it's Ellie and Abby. So it just works differently. It's fun in a video game when you're playing as people and you can pick who you're playing as, because you're just getting to play them. But when you actually have to think about the narrative structure behind a character and their motivations and their character growth and story, it's a little bit different than a video game. And I think it was a smart play to have this huge battle that didn't exist. And it was sort of a great setup to give Abby a moment of pause and to show her as a character herself, to show that A, she's capable, but also B, that she might have a learning curve in terms of who is this Joel person that she despises so much, that she has sworn to die, to kill. So we don't really get that. Instead, Joel's just kind of with Dina because Tommy needed to be there for purposes of Jackson, so he couldn't be with Tommy, which is what he is sort of in the video game, and which means they couldn't, they had to knock Dina out because she didn't know what was going on, which is kind of odd. The whole knocking Dina out thing. Abby doesn't know Dina. Abby doesn't know what Dina knows and what Dina doesn't know. And I don't understand why they knocked her out. Like, why, you know what I'm saying? Like, why, does Abby have such intimate knowledge of everything? Because they didn't even, a little while ago, they didn't even know the difference between Joe and Joel. They weren't 100% sure on what his name was. So are they 100% sure on what the girl's name was? Because Dina is still young and they could think she's Ellie. So I don't quite get why they knocked her out. Like, that just seems like a random choice. And I love the drugs and the specificity. And she's like, she'll be out for only an hour. I promise. I was like, okay, uh, oh, all right. But why and how, and how do you know this? Where's your medical training? Do you know this because you were the daughter of a doctor and he taught you all of the things and how to use medicine? Because ultimately, you're not the one that measures out the vial. You make this other chick do it. Uh, so I don't know. Um, and uh, there's a character, Amy, who's in a tower who's keeps calling out, and they can't check in with Joel, and well, during the blizzard or the attack or anything like that. And Ellie and Jesse hear about it. So of course Ellie is like, well, I'm gonna find Joel, and somehow manages to find this cabin, which Joel didn't seem to know where the cabin was. Like, now everybody can find the fucking cabin, because they need to, because the show requires it. Um, so that Ellie can be there, to witness, to bear witness to the passing of Joel. Uh, but Abby is already beating the shit out of him at that point. So, uh, yeah, there's so much to unpack, like why Ellie didn't just shoot Abby immediately when she had a gun, like, and I don't know. There's just a lot about the cabin part that just feels like, well, we have to do this, right? But do you? It was one of the things that when somebody was talking to me about the show, I was like, uh, I mean, they've course corrected and made other choices in other series before, notably Game of Thrones with Jon Snow, when they realized, oh shit, he's a popular character. Uh, well, we can resurrect him, I suppose. We'll just make that make sense. And then we'll write that into the series. And suddenly the resurrection of Jon Snow became the least offensive thing about Game of Thrones by the time we got to the final season of Game of Thrones, which I think still has a petition to be reshot with like a couple million signatures on it. Uh, so it would seem weird that the resurrection of Jon Snow, bringing him back from, it was, uh, you know, in a series that didn't have a problem with the Red Wedding, didn't have a problem with Ned Stark. It routinely killed off people. And my counter to that is that with Game of Thrones, you actually had an ensemble. You actually had a balanced set of characters, and you were used to sort of seeing one of them get killed off. And then it would find a way to sort of slowly integrate new characters for you to be interested in and build these relationships with. But Game of Thrones sort of expertly crafted actual character development in there so that when people died, you cared, but also you had other people to care about. And I think that's really important. It's not an absolute, because the other show that I referenced, The Walking Dead, had the same thing where it had been expertly crafted up until a certain point and absolutely had a cast full of other characters to care about. But anytime you talk to anybody about when did they leave The Walking Dead, it's Glenn. Literally, my friend called me last night and was like, hey, did you see the episode? And we were talking. He was like, why don't you, I was like, okay, so I watch a lot of TV. I'm a huge Walking Dead fan. And I started by saying, like, I know you didn't watch Walking Dead because it, didn't have audio description, so I don't know how much you know. He's like, no, I watched it. I watched it all the way up until Glenn. And I was like, thank you for unprompted offering of that. I didn't even have to lead him into that. And it proved my point. Anytime you talk to anybody who left The Walking Dead, it's at the same fucking point. Like, every single person left either that episode or shortly thereafter, like, realizing, like, oh, it's not the same. Oh, we're missing Glenn. And Glenn wasn't even the lead of The Walking Dead. And that was a death that was faithful to the comic book. So they did everything where they pandered directly to the original source material, and it ended up shooting them in the foot. So it's an inability to read your audience and separate your TV show audience from your video game audience and realize that those two things are not necessarily the same. Uh, I kind of wonder if they had tested this for people who were not a fan of the video game and been like, what are your thoughts? And then is there an alternate route that they could have gone had they tested this and had everybody on their little dials going, pew! Do I think the ratings are? Yeah, I think the ratings are going to go down. I think people are absolutely going to exit the series. First of all, Pedro Pascal is the biggest name of the series. You replace him with Caitlin Dever, who does not have the same star quality or clout of Pedro. And we do have a town full of people of potential in a series that doesn't like to spend time with fleshing out supporting characters for more than like 2 episodes. So we've already spent too much time in Jackson based on the rhythm of season 1. It would have been nicer to know that we were slowing it down and spending more time in Jackson by not killing off Joel in the second episode, but then making it postponed and instead showing Joel with Abby and making people wonder, is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? You know, Joel could have taken Abby back to Jackson. Abby could have seen Jackson and seen what it is, seen that it's easier for her to get in and be introduced to everybody there. I mean, there's so many other potential things that could have happened that would have given Abby more character. Instead, sort of what happens with her in the video game, where a lot of people just hate her, it just happened in a TV series. The problem is that she's a co-lead, and there are a lot of people who hated Negan and never really got into it. And I don't know that Negan has ever redeemed himself, and he has his own spinoff that's going into its 2nd season. So depending on who you ask, has Negan redeemed himself for the people that he's killed? That's a good question. And the show has, The Walking Dead has spent quite a bit of time giving him several situations where he's had to put himself on the line and survive, where he has saved characters who would have otherwise died, who are very important to the show, in order to keep him around, so that way he's, off a leash, so to speak, so that he can earn the trust of a group who he has absolutely no trust with. That took a lot of time. It was a lot of time that people were not willing to give to Negan either. A lot of people didn't stay for his arc as a villain, even though he's one of the biggest comic book villains of the series. So, arguably the biggest comic book villain of The Walking Dead, followed probably close behind by the Governor and the Whisperers. So, do I think this was an excellent choice? They moved it inside to a cabin, which helped. Abby's got her little posse there, but her posse's underdeveloped. Owen has had the most screen time. I don't know that we know who the rest of the other people are. If they were suddenly replaced by different people in the next episode, I don't know that you would notice. I don't know that anybody would care if they were just suddenly like different people following her and Owen around. Like, okay. I mean, they're so unfleshed out as characters. Character development is really important, and I think it's something that we take for granted. It's also something that, because we live in a TikTok generation, that we seemingly are way too, inclined to rail against. Like, oh, it's too boring. Oh, it's too slow. Oh God, well, you see the reactions to the season premiere. There are a lot of negative reactions, most of them having to do with the sexuality of Ellie, because the world is still homophobic. And people think that it's like wokeness, and because they don't realize that this is, again, a choice that they've decided to bring in from the video game, not a choice that they made because Bella Ramsey has pronouns, but a choice because it was in the series. So, in the video game. So if you don't like Ellie and Dina together, then what you're saying is you're already advocating for changes to be made from the video game. So why not other changes? I think continuing to use Walking Dead as a point mainly because it's the most successful show to feature zombies. uh, it made a lot of really successful choices throughout the course of its run, and huge changes by killing off characters earlier than they were supposed to die, but also letting characters survive and creating characters out of nothing, out of thin air. Daryl Dixon has his own spin-off. That dude was not in the comics. Uh, Carol barely existed in the comics. She wasn't a huge character, and she dies in the prison uh, around the time when they're at the prison. She way survives her death, and now she's in the spinoff of Daryl Dixon. So, but meanwhile, Andrea, who actually does survive her much longer than her death in the series, dies early, and therefore was a surprise to people. And that was a risk, to kill off Andrea and to surprise people and be like, oh my God, Andrea's not supposed to die here. What's happening? I don't know. What is this? I don't know. You know? But this show had such a strong ensemble around it at the time that they were able to surprise people with an early death for Andrea and let Carol survive longer and give her sort of a different path and continue to build her, build a character for Melissa McBride that was incredibly nuanced and far more than anything that they were able to do for her in the comic book franchise. They have the opportunity to do that with all sorts of characters here because we have Jackson and we have all these characters, but the structure just isn't there from season one. So people are going to be jarringly hit with a feeling of slowing down. If we spend one more episode in Jackson, people are going to suddenly be complaining that the show's not going anywhere. We're not doing anything, because the first episode was all about getting from one place to another. Well, the second place doesn't have that. The second place is now, it had no catalyst. It needed a catalyst, and that catalyst became Ellie needing to seek revenge on Abby for the death of Joel, where he was just savagely beaten to death with a golf club, which at least they kept the same weapon as they use in the video game, I suppose. Kudos. But, yeah, do I think it was the right choice? No, I don't think it was the best choice. And I think creatively, when you have people who are involved in the video game, they think obviously everything that they did was great. And why would they change it? We made the right decision then, we made the right decision now. They've spent probably a great deal of time defending their choice that they made from the video game. So why would they change it? Why would they alter it? And the reason I would say is you're in a different medium now. You're in the TV medium and not the video game medium. So what was the reason for you moving to television? You showed us, obviously, a couple times in the first season by, as an example, expanding two characters who had no backstory, who were just dead bodies, by giving them this entire story in an episode that was really well reviewed and Emmy nominated. So that's a reason. So what else could be a reason? And I think part of the reason is being able to explore characters that you hadn't previously been able to explore and giving them the kind of depth that they were lacking in a video game. And it's less of responding to the death of Joel and more of responding to the lack of growth of Abby. Being introduced immediately to a character who has no personality, who kills your protagonist, it's a hard sell from that point on. And now they have to work their way out of that. Can they? Will people give them the space and the time needed? Well, they haven't really done that for anything else. So I don't really have a whole lot of hope. And there are already people who are complaining online about things from the first episode. So I think people love to complain and look for things. I just never underestimate the power of actual true character growth. I said I liked season 2 of House of the Dragon. One of the reasons is because we have a massive expansive cast It's asking you to believe a whole bunch of things. We had to learn about all of these writers. There are all of these people in all of these lands. It has a huge cast, and instead of making everybody sort of like nameless faces, or hey, that dude died. Which guy? Oh, he was in that one scene, you know, which is kind of what it feels like when you move through things too quickly. Dune Prophecy uh, just sped through. It was like a speed run. It had a huge cast too, so it made it really hard to get emotionally connected or invested in anybody because you have too many people taking up too much screen time, and the runtime of the episodes is arguably the same runtime, and then it's a limited series with only a few episodes ordered. It gets kind of tough. Last of Us, we're probably going to get 9 episodes, and I guess 18 that'll represent all of all of the second video game. So, what do? How do you represent that? And now everything is on the shoulders of Ellie, a character who is polarizing to the fan base because she's not quite the same as she was in the video game. And now, uh, eh, you know, I love her. I think Bella Ramsey's great, and I think she deserves an Emmy nomination. There are other people online though, because this is where politics have taken us, who just think that it's some sort of, I don't know, woke attack on their sensibilities. So I don't know where this series is going to go. Honestly, I mean, it may not be the right series for the time. It may not. It looked like it was going to be, but I think I would have tried to read the room a little bit more and taken the criticism and feedback from the video game, and then looked at other comparable storylines and figured out, well, what can we do differently? How can we make this better? How do we make season 2 better? And when you take the thing that everybody just keeps talking about, that's like the most predictable thing, and then you just give it to them, cool, I guess. I mean, you placated the fans, but you placated fans of the video game, and The Walking Dead placated the fans of the comic book franchise. And go check the ratings for The Walking Dead after that episode and watch it continue to decline. So, what do I think of The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 2? Oh, God. Grading it is almost an impossibility because, like, half of it was amazing. The entire horde attack is it's brilliant in and of itself, but it feels like years from now, that won't be what we're talking about. It's going to always be dwarfed by Joel's death because we spent a lot of time in that cabin. Abby had to have her speech. For some reason, Joel never talks and says anything about why he did what he did to even relate. And then Abby has no realization as she kills Joel in front of Ellie that she might be doing the same exact thing that she herself, thus, coming up, like having a full circle moment where the hero becomes a villain, even in her own storyline. If you were watching, if there was, I don't know, another TV series where Abby was the lead and then she's bleeding into this series, well, you came full circle and now you're the villain. So she two-faced herself. So, yeah, I don't know. I want to grade it like separately. So I would give the Jackson part an A. I thought that was excellent and extraordinary. I thought there were parts of the zombie horde attack that featuring Joel and Abby. I thought that were great, showing Abby in peril, that she was in danger, the Joel saving her thing. All that was great. Then you put a cabin in there, and first of all, Joel doesn't immediately know. He's like, where? What? Like, don't you know where these things are? Even I mean, that's the same thing that Ellie has. You know, when Jesse's like, I got a place. And she's like, where? Like, don't they know where these, there can't be that many buildings within a discernible radius of this building, of this place that they have, that they don't know exists. You know, they've been there for years and then go on recon missions. These characters should know where these buildings are. They're not having to travel for miles. Like, where are we going? I've got my people held up in a cabin about 20 miles away. You know? No, it's like they can see Jackson from their fucking cabin. And you're telling me that Jackson doesn't know where this cabin is? Um, so, yeah, and Ellie magically knows exactly where Joel is, and it's not hard for her to search. She doesn't like scope out other buildings. I don't know. I feel like opportunities were missed here, like several opportunities. And then Dina gets knocked out, but they don't really say why Dina gets knocked out. Like, why does Dina need to be knocked out? Why is she unconscious? There's just so many choices that were made that feel like, well, we have to kill Joel, because if we don't kill Joel, then what'll happen? It's like, I don't know. Why don't you find out by not killing Joel immediately and letting it play out? Like, was there ever an option on the table to go past this episode? Or did you always feel like it had to happen immediately? So, it's not that I'm arguing that he can't be killed. I'm arguing that this was not the way to do it. So, based on that, I don't know. I give that half of the episode something like a C plus. I mean, there was some good acting in there, and I'm not totally against the prospect of it ever happening. I'm not going to say that Joel can't be sacrificed, but in some ways, I think a more interesting death for him might have been to sacrifice himself, especially if he had sacrificed himself for Abby. You know, if in that sequence, if I was forced to, gun to the head, if the producers of The Last of Us said, we're killing him off this episode, you have to figure out how. I'm like, well, Abby's not going to kill him. He's going to die saving Abby. And then Abby is going to, A, get what she wants by knowing that Joel died, but also having the conflict of knowing the only reason she's still on this earth is because Joel gave himself for her. You know, and we're going to walk away with that and give her that thought so that way she can actually be a character moving forward instead of a target, which is what she is now. She's just this thing that Ellie's going to eventually have to kill. So, there you go. Those are my thoughts on The Last of Us, to add to everything else that's out there on the internet about The Last of Us. What do I hope for episode 3? I honestly hope that we go somewhere else. I think it's really hard to pick up right from where we left off, and to have a somber funeral or whatever for Joel and everything. It will feel like it's slowing the series down, and I want to spend time with the characters. It'll be a lot easier if we are able to throw that flashback in and show Joel with Eugene and go into that whole thing so that we're in the past, and then come back to the future. And we've already time jumped slightly so that we don't have a funeral for Joel, and so that Ellie can go a little bit past the mourning period, and so that we can see maybe where the series is going to go next. Because the series needs to develop other characters. It needs people other than Ellie. It needs to develop Abby. It needs to do other things. But it feels like it can't do that in the immediate wake of this episode. So I would do the flashback episode next. And then come back in episode 4 and give people a beat and let them breathe and let them see Joel one more time, living and doing something else. And who knows, maybe there's some context to the Eugene thing where you're gonna be like, oh man, Joel, what did you do? Damn, man. You know, I don't know, maybe it'll add some context to it, but who knows? But I'm not leaving the show. I didn't leave The Walking Dead. but I just know too many people who did, and I've heard their complaints for years and years and years, and I know that's what's going to happen, and it is already happening with The Last of Us, with a lot of reactions to Joel's death. So, with people going like, well, I'm not going to watch ever again. Okay. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys on the other side.